Is that perfect?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, it's 7
It's
o'clock.
like I kept looking over at myself.
It's 7 o'clock, so I will call our meeting to order. Carter, will you do a roll call of trustees, please?
Yes. Katie Hornbeck.
Present.
Andrew Armstrong.
Present.
Sam Matthews.
Present.
Martha Montgomery.
Present.
Doreen Brown.
Present.
Cherry Richardson. Then we have our visitors today. Elizabeth. All right. And then Cecilia. Yep. All right. And then
Amanda.
Amanda. Yes, thank you. Amanda, what's your last name?
Bruton.
Excellent.
B-R-U-T-O-N?
B-R-E-W-T-O-N.
Got it. Okay.
And then it looks like we have Jerry on the line. I assume we're counting him as well, right? Is that how
You can count Amanda from my position. I'm just going to observe.
Roger that.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
Thank you, Carter. Before we move on, I would like to make a motion to add a line to our agenda under new business, an update on the library director is what I would like to call it. Is there a motion to add a line?
Motion.
Thank you, Doreen. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that'll pass. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from our May meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Thank you, Andrew. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that'll pass. We don't have any guests, so no public comments. So we'll move on to reports from our regional director. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's been a while. So I sent the report out, I think a couple of days ago. So you should have all received it in an email. So I'm not going to go through everything. There are a couple of things that I want to highlight. So one of the things that we asked the libraries to do and the staff to do is to attend training. So there are certain requirements, certain hour limits they have to take every year. And so this is kind of the time when we look through the reports that we get sent from the libraries, and we look at it and say, okay, well, these libraries are doing a great job, these libraries need to work on it a little bit. So Caitlin sent me with this infographic of what's happening in the White House. So I'm just going to, I think I can send that down there. Can I keep one actually?
You can keep that one.
Well, I think I want to give one to Milo.
Do you need one?
Yeah. So this infographic is just kind of showing you how White House did this year, and I had a quick chat with Caitlin before I left because she's the one responsible for this, and she's very pleased. And I think these guys are doing a really good job with, and Elizabeth is doing a good job promoting our trainings and also sending our staff to training. So you can see, all in all, 273 hours of CE hours for this staff. It's quite impressive, I think. And 9 staff members. We also have something called the core competencies in the state. We had that completed a couple of years ago. It's 28 modules covering everything you need to know if you want to work in a public library. And if you complete those 28 hours or 28 modules, you get 10 CE hours. And 8 of our staff members have done that. So that's a really high number for the number of staff you have. So
how many staff do you have? 9. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. And you can see the subjects that we covered here. Those are the types of trainings that her staff and Elizabeth have attended. So all in all, very impressive. Very happy with that. And of course, we see Elizabeth at most of our trainings, so it's always nice to have her there and always very active and engaged and asking a lot of questions. So just kind of kudos to you and your staff for that. A few weeks ago, we had a training with Chuck Sherrill, and he came to talk to us about how to work with public officials, which is always very interesting, and I think we all learn a lot from those types of trainings. It's just, how to be in a library, how to lead a library, and that kind of stuff. One thing he said that I thought was kind of interesting, and I've been telling this to all the boards that I've been meeting with, is that try to find a way, if you don't already do this, to inform your city or your county about the businesses that you conduct in your board meetings. And you might already do this. You might already send the minutes and that kind of stuff. But or you can maybe send an email with bullet points. This is what we did this time. I think often what happens, and I don't know if this happens here because Jerry is very involved, Amanda is very involved, so it might not be the case here, but sometimes we see boards that are kind of in a vacuum. They're appointed by their city or county, but they do a bunch of business and they meet, but they don't tell anyone what they're doing. So it's just something to consider. So I also have with me the official service population document that we give out every year, and I get the board chair to sign it. And really what it is just stating the county population, and it's showing you on this piece of paper what population White House is getting, and I think these are all based on census numbers, so there shouldn't really be any discussion about it, but it's White House is getting 15,194, which I'm assuming is just the city population in White House, more or less. I know
the estimated population.
Exactly. And then Stokes Brown gets the remaining of the county population. So this is, and I can't remember if you might need to show this to the aldermen before you sign it.
I don't think so. I think the other one that we have to is the library service agreement.
Okay.
That's the only one.
So that's that, and I just want to give that to you, and maybe I can get that signed today. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that today, we can always do that later. Maintenance of effort, that document will come out within the next couple of weeks. And I will send that to, I think I sent that to Elizabeth and to Katie. And then that just gets through the different channels and that gets signed. If you have any trouble with it, just let me know about that. But the deadline for that is not until October, so it's not any rush. The library service agreement, which is another document that we get signed. This is like the beginning of the fiscal year, everything happens. But that's the agreement between us and you. You saying you still want to be part of the regional library system. That has changed a little bit, so we don't have that ready yet, but we'll send that out as soon as we have it. Nothing big has changed. What we have added is a place for the board chair to sign that the library has a collection development policy and a reconsideration form. And that's just because the time we're living in and we need to be prepared for those types of things. So so you will see that probably in a few weeks, and we'll get you to sign that, and you can discuss that at the next meeting. I also would like to meet with you soon to sit down for an orientation. That's usually what we do, is have like an hour to kind of chat about trustee training. I know you've already done some of it, but that would be nice if I can just email you and we can set up a date. Yes, that would be great. So I'll do that. Standard survey, Elizabeth has done it, so I don't need to talk about it. She's also working on Title VI survey, so all good.
All good.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Can you remind me, are hours trained or the number of staff members trained, is that considered in like state standards or maintenance of effort? Like,
Yeah.
I know this is just good to do, but
Yeah.
does it also show up in other areas?
So it actually shows up in the library service agreement.
Okay.
And it didn't used to, but it was, I think it's about 5-6 years ago we included that. And we also made it a little bit, we expanded those numbers of required hours back then.
Okay.
So it's actually in that agreement. So,
Okay.
yeah. And it's in the standards as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Are the core competency courses that are listed here at the bottom, is that an annual thing, or is that like a one-time?
It's a once, I mean, you can do it as often as you like, but it will count only once. So if you do all 28 one year, you can't just do the same ones next year and get 10 hours again.
Gotcha.
But I think it's probably going to expand a little bit. We're probably going to just build on it.
Okay.
And so you will get 3 hours based on that. I think it's a really good tool for new employees employees just to kind of get them started, and this is library land, this is
Right,
what
right.
you need to know, but,
So
yeah, I have a lot of questions about people like, can we do this?
Right.
Can you just make them again, or can you make, 28
Gotcha.
new ones, that kind of stuff, so.
And Elizabeth, are you included as part of this total, or okay? So you're included in the
Yes.
9?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And I have broken down what each staff member did, if you want to see how many hours each staff member did and what courses they took.
Okay,
Excellent, thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, any other questions for today? Thank you so much. Now we'll move to our library director report.
Okay, so we'll start with the May report. In May, that's when I did present the budget to the BMA when they were going over the first reading of the budget. I also met with Alderman Matthews and did a trustee orientation in May. I attended a Lions Club meeting in May. That's when I dropped off some of the glasses, and they discussed also helping a neighboring Lions Club put together kind of food care packets. So that might be something I'd go and do since that is set in stone. We met in May, the library board did. We discussed updating the city ordinance, or recommending the BMA to update that. I have not taken that to the BMA yet. That's going to probably be on the August schedule for the BMA to vote. I also had a meeting with Public Works, Fire, Police, and Admin to discuss closing College Street for the Phantom Fair. And then I sent out calendar invites to those that were present to make sure the road was closed when needed, and it was, and so everything went well with that. I also attended a Friends of the Library meeting. At that meeting, we discussed finishing the pavers, which, if you don't know what those are bricks that we sell, and people can get something engraved on it, and then we put it in the little sections outside the library. So there's some already there. We kind of do that fundraiser every year. They're finished and engraved, and we're waiting on the maintenance man to put them in. We discussed the Phantom Fair because the Friends help support and pay for that. The garden benches. So I think I know this has been a year-long project. We were trying to make a new garden space outside the library in honor of Sherry and Don Eden, because they did so much for the library and a big Friends supporter. So if you haven't seen it, it's already got all the plants in. There's 3 benches in now. We're waiting on a sign, and as soon as we get the sign, we'll do a ribbon cutting. So we've definitely made a lot of progress on that. What else is the Friends discussed? Oh, and then because we moved the YA and juvenile section, we have to, they're going to buy a new sign to go over that. So instead of saying this was donated, or the YA room was donated by, it'll say the juvenile room was donated by. So that's something else they're purchasing. The children's librarian and the library assistant conducted interviews for the summer reading internship because we had 4 students apply, and we decided to take all 4 students, and they will all be working different days throughout the summer with different tasks assigned to them to complete. And then, like I said, I mentioned I attended the BMA meeting on May 15th. That was the first reading of the budget. I also attended a leadership webinar that was hosted by the State Library and Archives on May 15th. I think it was Houston County, maybe regional library that presented. It was actually presented by another regional director, and it was a really good webinar. So it's actually something that they recorded, so I can go back and watch later. Let's see. So I met with the regional director and assistant director on May 22nd for our annual consultation, where we discussed things that White House has, such as the succession plan for all the staff, the previous work we've done with Tenshare, etc. And I attended a regional roundtable on May 23rd. At that meeting, we had pretty much all the directors at the region, and we were discussing different issues that libraries have been dealing with, such as book challenges, disasters, time management, and so on. And then I met with Karen House, so she was actually the master gardener who helped get all that in for the garden. So she was a big help for that. So we really appreciate the master gardeners, and they have been coming back even on like Fridays when we're closed and helping to water. So I'm very appreciative of them. And then we did a lot of work on the Phantom Fair in May because we were getting everything ready. So going on. Statistical numbers, so, probably checkouts were pretty high, not quite as high as May of 2022, but still pretty close. Library visits were actually higher than May of 2022, so, and actually if you look at 2019, we were actually tied with 2019, so we're slowly getting back to the number of library visits that we used to have. Website usage has definitely gone up. A lot of people probably go there to get to Libby and other electronic resources we have, so that is something we've seen a huge increase in. Backside. So, we do shut programs down halfway through May so we can get ready for Fandom Fair. So it looks like there's a few less programs, but that's just because we know we have to plan for that big event. So, any questions, any numbers that you'd like to discuss in more detail? If not, I'll move on to June. So I did attend a virtual tech grant meeting on July 5th. The region again put that on, and it was talking about how to fill out the tech grant, how to finish the reports for the tech grant, what items are eligible. So that was very helpful for when we applied for the featured tech grant, which we did just do July 7th. I also met with all the volunteers for the Fandom Fair. That's when I assigned them tasks and gave them different instructions on what to do when you arrive, where to park, and so forth. Then I was coordinated with the fire department. We had our first water day for kids. That was June 8th, I believe. We closed College Street for that, and they sprayed the kids in the field. And it was estimated about 80 kids and 50 adults present. So it was a really good, successful day. And we had our second one today, actually. We closed College Street again, and I was not out there to count, so I'm not sure what the numbers are, but it still looks pretty successful. So, I went around and put up signs. Well, let me rephrase that. I went and picked up signs from the museum to use for Fandom Fair. So we were borrowing signs that say event parking and roads closed, so that way we were able to get everything ready. And while I was there, I got to see, so Sherry Tackett, for those of you who might not know her, she is on the Friends of the Library, and she used to work at the library. She's been here for a long time. She was given the wedding dress of Mabel Rose, who was the postmaster in White House for a number of years.
Okay.
It was in horrible shape, and so I worked on restoring it, and then I donated it to the museum. So it's actually now on display at the museum, so if you want to go see what it looks like, she has the original belt, so I could not restore the belt, so if you asked her to see the belt, you can see the difference of what the color was before I restored it and afterwards, so that is there at the museum. Also in June, we held our 6th annual Fandom Fair. It was a great event. We had an estimated 1,028 people. There was also 202 people that went through the escape rooms, lots of positive feedback, and so we'll talk later about what the marketing committee discussed as far as what we want to do moving forward. I also attended an Americana meeting on June 13th. That was where we kind of just made sure I knew the details on what was going on with that event. So on June 15th, I attended a training with the region on the Title VI training, which is what I'm working on. That's something that we're required to show the state as we receive text or grant money from them that we do comply with Title VI. So that webinar went over everything we need to do, and I am working on that currently. Let's see, I met with the board chair, we signed some papers, and we discussed the executive committee meeting, and Katie also signed the tech grant forms that I needed, so that way I could complete the 2023 tech grant. And then I attended the BMA meeting on June 15th. That was the second reading of the budget, so everything passed. We do have our full budget, so nothing was cut out, so just so everybody be aware of that. And then like Cecilia said, I did attend that training up at the region that Chuck Sherrill put on how to speak with public officials. And then the executive committee met. We met on June 22nd. We discussed the long-range plan, tech plan, and the bylaws, which we will vote on later tonight. So, any questions? One thing, so this back part's kind of long. We have a, or for the state, and TenShare provides an ILL service, which is what we use to get books from other libraries and send our books to other libraries. The state pays for that, and TenShare, which we are a member of, they use some, I think, of our due money to help pay for this service. The company that the state was using to provide ILLs decided that they wanted to get out of the contract because cost has gone up. So we thought that service was going to end. There's been lots of webinars. Every Friday they've been doing one to kind of update us on the situation and what they're going to do. At first they didn't think they could get us another service or company, and they thought we were going to lose it for 6 months. Now they're thinking they might be able to work it out to where they can just keep it the current service for 6 months and then figure out something else. So I'll have more updates next week, or after Friday, after tomorrow when I join that webinar, I'll have more updates. Right now, I think what we're kind of pending to see what they say. If the state can't work out the deal with this company, what we'll have to do is go back to sending books through the postal service. The only thing with that is we'd probably have to limit how many we do a month, just because we wouldn't have it in the budget to do as many as we have. But the nice thing, what we've been doing right now, is I have a sister that works in Springfield Library, so it's around. I have a sister that works at Hendersonville, so they have just been bringing books to me, and that's how we've been getting books from those libraries. I'm not joking.
Love
That's
it.
like
I'm imagining like in the old Kentucky, those books about when it was on horses.
Well, it doesn't work very well to have a sister in each library because we rely on that heavily for the book club. And we get like 8 to 10 copies of the books that the book clubs are reading, and they have like my staff like, can you ask your sister to bring like the 2 copies from Gallatin and the 2 copies from Hendersonville, and so that's what we've been doing.
Clever.
Yeah. So the big highlights for the month were the success with the fandom fair for June. So. As far as numbers, again, number of items that went out actually was just a little bit higher than June of 2022, so people are definitely reading more here in the summer. Number of visitors was actually a little less than last year, which is surprising because, like I said, the fandom fair was just packed. But again, they're still coming. They are starting to come back, so we are getting close to that pre-COVID number as far as the number of people coming into the building. And again, library website usage is through the roof. I do, like I said, I think some of that drop in the number of people coming in is because there's a lot of people using our e-resource. We have so many people calling and asking, can I use Libby? Can I do this? So there's a lot more people coming to our website to get onto those types of resources. And then, of course, programs. We actually had a huge increase in programs, and these programs on the back actually aren't the Fandom Fair numbers. Well, I do have the Fandom Fair count there, but even like if you look at the kids programs, sure, we offered 2 more than last year, but we were at 500, about 500 people last year, and now we're at 700. So I mean, the programs are definitely increasing. And again, these are separate than the Fandom Fair numbers, so it's not like I added them together. And this is kind of a further breakdown of the Fandom Fairs, how many people went into each escape room, how many went into the teams, how many participated in the costume contest, Lego building. So, any questions?
So I'm just curious,
Yeah.
as our population continues to increase, is there like a projection as to how many more people are going to be in the city limits for you to gauge your potential increase in patrons? Like what percentage of the city population are library users?
I pulled that recently for Sam, didn't I? Do you remember what it was?
I can't remember exactly, like 50% probably, close to that.
Yeah, we actually still have a lot of people that live outside the city that come in, and so I think it was like 52 might have been inside and 48 was outside.
Okay.
But again, with more growth in the city, that could flip. That
Well,
could flip
sure.
to where we might be closer to 75
Yeah.
inside the city, and only 25 is outside. It is something that I'm watching. It takes a little while sometimes for these subdivisions to be built out, but I do suspect that probably this year at the budget committee I will be asking for another full-time person. I did ask for more part-time hours this past year.
Right.
So,
Is this number, official service area population, is that based on this from last year?
Yes, so now this number.
We'll go here.
Yeah, so actually what Katie's talking about on the front page, it says,
Sorry.
official service population area, that's
All right.
the number that the state gives us, that is from
Okay.
the census. So that was the 2022 number. I didn't have the 2023 number, so actually
Right.
I'm gonna write that down before you turn that into Cecilia. So yes, we have already increased,
What is it?
15,094.
Okay.
might have hit that. Okay, thank you.
You might wanna get her to sign this.
Both of them?
Yeah, so you can keep it.
I'll have it back. Yeah. Yes, it is something that I do look at. And I do try to look at how many books we check out, because you have to remember this number too, and the number of books checked out, that's just checked out, that's not checking back in.
Right,
So you have to check that 7,000 books
back
back
in.
Mm.
Sure, so it's, that's also work from the staff to do that.
But even your program attendance is
Mhm.
going to continue to increase.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah,
expect and hope that it would be the same type of jumping, and that's 200 more people
Mhm.
in program attendance. So when you're looking at that, you're looking at staffing for that, you're looking for materials, budget, costs.
and we did add, youth services
Yes.
youth services librarian this
Right.
past year, that was full-time, to help with like team programming.
Mhm.
So again, I don't know if this coming year I'll ask for either a full-time circulation clerk, so those that are doing programs have less time at the desk,
Right.
so they can work on the programs more. Or we could look at, because I do think if the kids' programs grow enough, that it will probably be early literacy, or breaking up the kids groups even. So
Mhm.
you handle everyone 5 and under, you do 5 to 9, and then
Sure.
you guys do teens, and so, that is something that will be looked at probably. Any other questions?
And forgive me if we talked about, did we get rid of grabbing your kits, or are we just nixing those? at
So
the
we
moment for-
normally, because they do take time, we've been doing those just in the winter.
Got it,
Because
okay.
people are traveling.
Roger that.
So we think that
Yep.
that's a good time for them to grab the kit, go on vacation, or if they're not
Oh,
even going on vacation, they can pick it up and do it at home.
I just recognized that it was 0 in both of these months,
Yeah,
so I was like,
yeah.
we've either done away, it's been put on pause because of fandom, I couldn't remember what the
Which I
situation was
didn't
there.
have it on here, and I should have mentioned, so we actually did start, which I guess I could have included that as a grab and go, I don't know, because it was subscription kind of. We did subscription boxes for the teens only. So you know how you can subscribe to a subscription box that is every month you get a beauty kit, or every month you
Right.
get this, every month. So we had 15 applications, that was it. So whoever applied first were the 15 that got to subscribe.
Okay.
And what it was is they filled out the form on the application, what books they like to read, what their favorite movie is, what's their hobbies and interests. Then we put together a kit for that individual team with a book, items related to whatever their hobbies were, snacks, and they got to check out the kit.
That's so cool.
Oh,
The only
okay.
thing they had to bring back was the book, everything else they got to keep.
Oh, nice.
And they really liked it, so we're going to do it again this month, and then
Cool.
we'll probably do it in the winter as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Great.
Yeah, where's that on the sheet?
I didn't, because we put all 15, I probably should put that, I probably will change that, under June for the grab and go teens, I will probably put 15 and 15 because they all were picked up.
Yeah, absolutely, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Love it.
That is a very clever idea. That's
Well,
I like that.
that's what they're into, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what they want, and they.
I would like it.
You want to do for
The adults would like their subscription box.
Like adult.
That's right. There you go.
Thank you.
There's a lime in there.
We're brainstorming now.
Right.
Alright, moving to the budget, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the end of the budget year, so this would have been June. So even though there were some lines that had negative numbers, again, we had other lines that weren't overspent, so we had plenty left over at the end of the year. So we will be fine. Any questions?
Can you remind me why there's so much remaining in salaries? I'm sure it's changed.
I think it was because it took us a couple of months to hire the youth services librarian.
Okay.
It stayed open
Okay.
for a couple of months before we found somebody that we got to accept
Okay.
it.
And
Gotcha.
part of that is also the way we have to budget for that. So we have to budget the maximum salary, the family full benefits, because I have no idea who we're gonna hire.
Yeah.
Right.
And then depending on where they fall means there can be some surplus. If you look at the health and insurance, I think there was 35,000 left in
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Because we had 2 vacancies at the time, and health insurance cost the city about $20,000
Yeah.
per person.
Do you guys typically budget that? And I'm asking for my own ignorance here, but do you guys typically budget that because you mentioned like for a family? Do you guys like? Is there like a? I guess there's like a thing. So if it's not used, it ends up just being kind of like a surplus, right?
Right, and it
Yeah.
just stays in it just goes back to fund balance
Yeah.
at the
Right.
end of the
Okay.
year.
Cool.
I think you were here the last time we had a question about that part of the budget, so your timing's great again.
I do my best on that.
Any other questions about the budget? Melissa? Okay. Then we will move on to committees. The executive committee met.
Yes, we have 3 things we
Yes.
discussed. The first one was long-range plan, because we have accomplished a lot on the long-range plan. We really had to do quite a bit of updating. So anything scratched off is what we would be proposing to remove. Anything underlined would be new. So on the back side, we did scratch off expanded winter reading challenge into an annual event, because we feel like we've done that, so it doesn't need to be a goal, it's accomplished. We also kind of took off increased number of park story times hold, and we just kind of put on their whole park story times and field trip days. So the field trip days are something that they're doing at Stokes Brown Public Library, and they will plan a day where the librarian will say, this is where we're going. It's kind of like a field trip, so we might meet at the museum, we might meet at a farm, and the kids, if the parents want to bring them, they show up, they do kind of a little story, they kind of get to see everything at the place that they're doing the field trip on. So I don't think we'll do quite as many as Stokes Brown starting with, but if we could just do maybe 1 or 2 in the summer, I think that would be good. And then we dropped down, so I'm taking off the book delivery to the nursing homes, because when I've talked to them, they're like, we really just don't think we have the patrons here that can use it. We do have a program with them already that if somebody else, like a family member or a friend, wants to fill out a card and get a card for that individual at the nursing home and is willing to pick up the books, they can do that, and it will be a special card for them. But the nursing home was like, we don't have enough for you guys to deliver books to us. It's kind of been 1 or 2 individuals, so we kind of taken that off. Something we would like to add is educational kits for adults. We already have the STEAM packs for kids. We think it would be good to kind of have those type of kits for adults, so whether it's a baking kit, whether it's a sewing kit, or even sensory kits for people that have Alzheimer's and things like that. So. We also want to kind of continue to expand and offer the summer reading internship. Since this was the first year we did it, we feel like we could expand on that a little bit and hopefully next year get a few more kids. The other thing we're looking at doing is adding museum passes. So there's a lot of libraries up north that are doing this, where they will buy a yearly membership to a museum, and then the patrons can check it out here at the library and go to that museum while they haven't checked out, and then bring it back, and then the next patron can get it. So it's kind of helpful for patrons that can't afford to go to a museum on their own, or have such a big family. Maybe they can only buy 2 passes and not all,
Let's say like the Frist as an example, is that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
so
Okay.
we've reached out to just a few that are in our area. We reached out to National Zoo, the Frist, the Venture Science Center, I think the Music Hall of Fame, Chief Wood. So there's a few. It doesn't have to be museums. It could be historic homes, and like I said, any educational centers around. So we've gotten some feedback from them. I think a lot of museums are like, well, we're not opposed to this. We just need to get something in place. So we're hopefully we can get that moving forward. So again, because I feel like our website hits are so high, and we already have worked on purchasing more ebooks and audiobooks. One thing that we don't own right now is downloadable movies. So we were thinking about possibly looking at purchasing some downloadable movies and or subscription based to some of those type of resources, just because more people tend to want to be able to look at those things online and at home. Then the other thing, this came through on the listserv about resources for communicating with the deaf community. We do have a couple of patrons that are deaf, and it is very hard for us staff members to communicate with them. So this is some resources that we were looking at that we can offer so that we can better communicate with them, so they will use the library more, because we feel like there is a bit of a gap there. It's not that they can't, but it is kind of hard to just have to write down everything and pass a note back and forth, so we feel like this would be a good way to reach them. And then also we were looking at adding a reservation software, so patrons can reserve the study rooms in advance and or other materials. So if they want to reserve the museum passes in advance, they could do that. Because right now they have to call us to reserve a study room or come in to reserve a study room. There's not a way to just do it online with a one-click access. So we did the windows for the display, so we were taking that off, and then we were the executive committee really discussed tasking. I know I spelled that wrong. I did spell that right. See that? Tasking the marketing committee to create a marketing plan. Just because we are expanding so much, and again, marketing the new stuff we would add. So if we're going to add museum passes, if we're going to add a streaming service, we feel like we need to be prepared to market the services we're offering. And then we also put on there, create a garden to grow food for the public with the help of the FFA, Master Gardeners, Boy Scouts. I know there are libraries that are doing that and have the food type programs available.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Where would the garden be? Like,
we are looking at raised beds.
So, like,
and
right around the library itself?
Yes, raised beds. And then we took off, try to increase the number of active card holders, because we actually have, and we think that is because we send out emails and text messages letting patrons know when their cards expired. So we think that's helped. We took both of those off. And then we also took off the collected stories on patron experiences, and we decided to develop a plan to objectively measure patron satisfaction and experiences. So that way it's not just random stories, it's a little bit more uniform. So any questions so far about any of this?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the updated long-range plan?
I motion.
Thanks, Andrew. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Who said that? Oh, thanks. Thank you, Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Okay, the next thing that we discussed was the text plan.
Yes, so we do, by the state standard, have to look at this every year, so that's what we looked at. The main things that we kind of updated were, and I know if you go to the second and third page, it looks like the entire box is crossed out. We did that just because we decided we're going to group the computers together better and the tablets together better, so that's why we just made a whole new box. So the box is updated with the correct number of computers, correct number of tablets, so on and so forth. So that's what that is. The main changes, though, kind of came on the back side where we have just some differences in number of computers, how many of them have Windows 10, how many of them have Microsoft Office, and then on the back side, these are the goals kind of on the back side. We were going to take off the displaying of the technology devices, and we were going to increase the amount of purchases for ebooks, audiobooks, and reduce the amount of money that we're spending on physical audiobooks being purchased. And then we also put on there, which kind of ties in with the long-range plan, looking at purchasing a movie streaming service and reducing the amount of DVDs being purchased, and then look at purchasing a coding software for kids and teens for more advanced coding, because we do have a coding class, but it kind of fizzled out slightly because the kids have completed everything, and this software actually is way more advanced. Like, they can go through C++, Python, like so many different coding software. So that's what we're looking at purchasing. Any questions? And this back paper here because the long-range plan, or the, excuse me, technology plan says that there's a warranty list, that's your warranty list. But, you don't really have to vote on the warranty list, it just accompanies the product, so.
Thank you. So I'm just curious, has anybody ever suggested doing a coding class for adults?
I think we actually had somebody that was willing to teach it, and I can't remember if we advertised and nobody showed up, because like, we used to do computer classes for adults, but we found that they were like, kinda either shy or didn't like going into a class setting, but when we do the one-on-one, like our device-to-device appointments, which are one-on-ones, are almost always filled. Because I don't know, again, if people feel kind of like, oh, I should already know this, or I don't like being in this group setting, so, I don't know, we could look at that again.
I mean, even if you use the stuff that the kids are using, because
Yeah.
it's so basic and everything.
Yeah. It might be something that I think if we do the kids program first and see how, because this would be new software to us, to learn it, to see, yes, we think this is something adults could do for, like you said, learning the basics. And then if they pass the basics, well, then we have to find someone else to go on to, unless we can find, you know, a teacher, because none of us staff could go on beyond that probably. But we can look into it.
Are there any other questions or discussion about the technology plan? Is there a motion to approve the technology plan?
Motion to approve.
Carter, anybody second?
Second.
Thanks, Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Excellent.
Okay, actually, real fast before we go on that thing, Cecilia, do you know if there's any libraries that are offering adult coding class?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
I'm glad to chat about this one, the bylaws.
okay, sure.
The changes to the bylaws was actually something that I proposed to the executive committee when we met. I am coming up on 1 year, we'll have elections tonight as chair, and have found that I was in this position 1 year, you're just starting to get traction. We only meet 6 times. We didn't meet in November, and I think we missed the March meeting, so it was only 4 meetings. Elizabeth and I just started meeting regularly. I think I've only been able to attend 2 of the trainings that the region offers. I'm not saying that to say I should get another year. I'm just saying whoever's in this position, I think they can serve better in this position in a 2-year term instead of 1. So I discussed that with the executive committee when we met. They agreed, and so that's why we're proposing this change to the bylaws tonight. I welcome question and discussion about that.
Yeah, this would be for all offices. So
Yeah,
chair,
for all
vice
offices.
chair, and secretary, they would get a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term.
I mean, I think it's a great idea because meeting only maybe 5 times throughout the year is not enough to develop the relationship that the new chair needs with the library director or with the committees. So I think that's a great idea to have it a 2-year, like a 2-year term.
I think so.
No, I agree. I actually was thinking earlier, geez, Kate just is so comfortable now.
Turn it easy to I think it'll serve anyone in these positions.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
agree.
everyone.
I agree.
So is there a motion to approve the change to the bylaws?
I have just one
Please.
easy question.
Mhm.
The term's 3 years of service.
Mhm.
So if you've served 2 years and you go in your 2nd year, you're
Yeah,
like,
so
We would have a special election,
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically.
We would have,
yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Does that make sense? What?
A special election for what? No,
I was being silly.
So my question is, okay, like this is my 1st year.
Mhm.
Okay. Retain your positions, that's lovely. But then you guys rotate off.
Yeah.
Then
so
the
we
next
would
year,
go
it would
through
be my
every-
3rd year. So I would only be a 1 year
Mhm.
if I moved into a
Well,
1 year
unless the
position.
BMA reappointed you.
You can
Oh,
serve,
okay.
you
You
can
can serve up to
two
6
terms.
years.
Yeah.
Consecutively.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
I see what
You
you're
would
saying.
still,
I see what you're
you
saying.
would
Yeah.
still get to keep your second term on the library
I
board.
understand.
Unless you were like, I don't wanna serve anymore,
Right.
tell the
Okay.
VA that's just kick me off.
I'm just clarifying.
Yes,
Yep.
good question. We talked about that too.
We
So
did.
there probably will become some staggering in the offices just as term limits.
Sure.
And in full
Right.
disclosure, mine ends next July, so I would only have one more. If I was appointed again, I'd only be on for one more year, or next June, I think is when mine ends. But, so there might be some staggering in the officers.
Sure.
Mhm.
But I think that could be helpful too. A new chair coming on, but none of the officers changing, so there's some
Continuity.
consistency
Mhm.
there as well.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good.
Great question. All right, is there a motion to approve the bylaws?
I'll motion to approve the bylaws.
Thanks, Carter. Second, does anyone second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that'll pass. Okay. The Finance and Budget Committee does not meet, so we'll move on to the Marketing and Public Relations, who had their biggest month.
Yes. So we actually just met, right before this meeting to review the Fandom Con, so I don't have all those notes typed up on what we just talked about. So here's the numbers, but I will just recap what we discussed. So we went over kind of what went well, what didn't go well, or what maybe needs to be tweaked. We actually liked that there was a gap between the vendors, leading up to the library because it made a nice traffic flow. We felt like the petting zoo went well, face painting went well, character artists went well. We really, really liked actually closing College Street.
Mhm.
Even though we didn't have maybe as much on the street, we think we want to close it again next year because everyone parked there and came across. So we knew where the flow was. The flow was really well as far as people coming in, going. There was no issues either of people getting in and out of the grass.
I was gonna say, I don't think we covered that, but yeah, that was nice.
Yeah,
Entering and exit,
we're right there.
we weren't in the chaos of, when you were ready to leave, you were able to kind of separate cleanly, yeah.
Right. Escape rooms,
Sorry.
of course, went well. Escape rooms went well. The few things that really there were, like I said, a few things that need to be tweaked. So one of them was we think we actually need to pay for 2 character artists, 2 balloon twisters, and more face painters because the lines are so long.
Definitely the balloon twister.
Oh, yeah, see?
You're so
Oh, yeah.
popular.
And he needs a tent.
Yes, I will make sure of that, I promise. And the axe throwing, we don't think went over enough, which was fine, so we're not gonna do that again, which is what we will use the funds we use for that to pay for the extra people to keep those lines down.
That was,
I'm not gonna argue that, but I needed more people to do it. So, unless you wanna find a sponsor, if you find a business to
There we go.
sponsor it, I would
There
be
we go.
happy to have it again.
100%.
I'm putting her on the marketing committee.
I think she's going to be on the marketing committee, because she
Right.
had vendor booth at the con, she was there, she's
I know.
probably a very good
Keep
candidate
talking,
for it.
Green.
What?
Elizabeth,
Yes.
we almost didn't have access to the tents and the chairs and the tables.
Why?
They were booked, but then I guess that booking fell through.
Yep.
So in order to book those, I have to have an insurance letter from the city,
Okay.
so I have to get that first, but I will work on getting that and then booking them early.
Okay.
Cause that is something else we decided, we're gonna work on this much earlier now because it's grown so much. Yeah.
Since we already have a date
Yes.
set for next year, are
That's
you
why
able to go ahead
that's
and,
why I can get
okay.
that insurance letter, because
Roger
we
that.
didn't have it.
Question about that, Elizabeth, will there be an issue because our policy expires March 31st and we update April 1st with the
There
company?
might be, yeah, there might be.
So
Unless they will let me put down one to hold it and then update.
That was my question.
That's probably what I'll ask.
Just because, since our policies do expire with the renewal date of April 1, I don't want you to call us and then they'll say, nope, sorry, you can't book them till April 1st. That may be something you need to look at.
Yeah.
Well, they'll just probably, if they see your policy's gonna lapse, they'll contact you to
So you can ask for a new one.
Yeah.
I would think so, but
Mm.
That's a good point.
Where was it? So, what else? What were some of the other changes we discussed? Andrew's like, where's the note?
Oh, that's in the car.
There were, like I said, there were a few other changes for sure. Also, I think
Oh.
we're going to change the vendor application form because we did have a few people that kind of had a loophole where in the past, because Andrew was one of the people that would.
Did not
be
have a
approved.
loophole.
You didn't do the loophole, but, so some vendors needed a 20 by 10 space, and
Right.
ours just a 10 by 10, so we would offer the option that they could select that we want an extra booth space and pay a half price. Well, some vendors were clicking that they wanted extra booth space, but were selling something completely different from the first space.
So it was like two
And
vendors
so-
occupying.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and they didn't disclose that they had two different vendors, and they were selling two different things. And everything that's being sold has to be approved, so
Right.
we're going to just take that off. If they want two booth space, they're gonna fill out the form twice and just pay for two booth space.
And it created some overlap in the face painting because there was some confusion where from a marketing perspective, we offered free painting, and then
We had the one show
we
up.
had the one show up in that condition that was a paid face painting, and then there was a little bit of confusion there initially, and it just, so.
Yeah, because again, she registered as Teddy Bear Mobile.
Right.
Selling stuffed animals, and clicked I want an extra booth space. I thought, oh, she's just gonna have extra animals, and then she shows up, it's like, no, this is my face painting side. And it was kinda like, well, I know you paid for the booth, so I won't say anything, but next year this won't happen.
Right.
Also, Elizabeth, something you might wanna look at, and you might ask Mandy if she does this, I don't know how that works, but actually putting on the application a clause that states, if you show up to provide services that are being offered for free, we will not allow you to participate in the
good call.
program.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
some retain
Right.
on there, that way they can't say, well, I didn't know I couldn't do
Right.
this,
Right.
it's clearly stated.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So, what else? Do you have your notes there, Carter?
Yes. We talked about the differences between the maps and the QR codes, and then possibly being able to set up earlier for
Right.
vendors.
Right. Do you think that would be helpful, Doreen, to set up before 8? There were a few vendors we felt like were struggling to get.
Yeah, at the very end, there were some, the hardest part was getting the vehicle in, getting everything out, and then navigating back to the other people that were still setting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing was the feedback about having more food options. That's a good opportunity for next year.
Yeah. And then I think we also discussed, so the circus went well.
Right.
It went really well, but there was another circus I had reached out to prior, and the only reason I didn't book them is because they already booked our date. But his price, he would have been the same cost as the one I hired, but he would have stayed all day. Whereas this circus was only a 3-hour act, and he did, the one that would have stayed all day for the same price, did multiple acts throughout the day. So we actually think we want to try the other circus, and then after that, we can see which one we like better.
In regards to the food vendors,
Yes.
a friend of mine at school is planning for an event next April, and she's already booking food trucks.
That's why we're gonna start early. That's why we set the date
Yeah.
already.
Right.
Because I knew I needed to be able to start booking people.
Yeah, that's great.
That's crazy.
Congratulations
Yeah.
to you and your
That's-
staff and the
that is
committee. That's
huge.
that number of attendees is
That's massive.
fantastic.
Right.
I was sad a work trip was extended, so I missed it, which I was really bummed about, but I'm glad to hear that it was such a success.
Sam, did you have a good time?
I did.
Did you do the escape room?
No, I did not do that, but I spent a lot of time inside the library.
Great. Okay, and then nothing from the policy committee? All right.
Okay.
Doesn't look like we have any
I got what
unfinished
this is.
business to discuss.
I was trying to understand. I'm like, no, wait, this is policy committee. That's not what that is.
Right. So we'll move on to new business tonight. The first thing on there is elections, which is electing the officers.
Chair, vice chair, and
Chairs.
secretary.
This is, Andrew is our vice chair currently. This is his last board meeting with us.
He rolls off in August, but we don't
Right.
meet in August, so.
I've met my 6 years.
Have you really?
I have.
Yes, and we're so thankful.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So-
very thankful for
They're
your
kicking me
service.
off.
Those laws.
But you can come back in 3 years,
In
right?
3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your service
Absolutely.
to this board and the library. I know that you will be missed.
Thanks for putting up with me.
So we will need to elect a new chair. a
How
new-
does this work? I'm
Somebody
sorry.
makes a motion.
No. Am I allowed to still vote?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A
You're
new,
still on the board.
I was making sure, like, you know.
a new chair.
This is for the future, so I wasn't exactly.
You're still a member.
Vice chair and secretary. So we'll need a motion.
I motion Katie to remain chair.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Alright. I motion that Carter be vice chair.
I can second that.
You're gonna make let the pressure build.
All in favor?
Nobody said it.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Excellent.
Carter's like, well.
I didn't ask them, no.
I really enjoyed doing this.
I love that.
Well, do you want to stay secretary?
No.
Would anyone like to be the secretary?
Doreen, you're a teacher.
Yeah. And what does that mean? That means you're responsible for taking the notes and making sure they get typed up, and that's a big responsibility.
I'd love for someone to want to do it.
Yeah.
Martha, are you interested?
I think she'd be really good.
Motion. Okay,
She motioned. She motioned.
Martha motioned for Doreen to be the secretary.
I second.
Andrew second. This is gonna be.
You can hate me, I'm leaving it.
All in favor? Aye. Is anyone opposed?
No.
Good.
Look at that.
How easy was that?
Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Um,
We'll see how the minutes are.
I'll keep sending them back to you.
Okay, the executive committee is made up of the officers that we just voted on, so that committee has, is taken care of. I believe the way committee appointments work is that I just appoint them, we don't vote on them, but I welcome your input. Currently Martha, Doreen, and Cherry are on the policy committee. Would you like to continue to stay on that?
I do.
Is that, yes?
Well, the executive committee
Mm-hmm.
meets how frequently?
We meet
Maybe.
as needed?
As needed?
Probably at least
Okay.
once a year and then after.
Yeah, I think we met twice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then I can still do the policy committee.
Well, unless you want to be moved to marketing.
Marketing.
That's fine.
Are you sure? Because you really like the con. You
Okay.
have a good idea.
Okay, then we're not putting you on marketing because you're doing all that work with minutes.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So policy committee, let's just leave it as is. Then,
Okay.
Cherry's not here, but I don't
That's fine, yeah.
actually oppose that. Executive's done. Marketing and, public relations. Carter, are you good to stay on that?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I'll leave Cherry on it.
Okay.
Anyone else interested in being on it?
And remember, there will be me eventually, a replacement.
Yeah, there will be.
Yeah, we need one more on it.
Yeah.
Sam, is that one that you're?
Well, and what Andrew's saying is, we will fill his role.
You'll fill my roles.
So we could leave it open.
You could leave it
What
vacant.
about Sam?
Oh, I could leave it vacant.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless Sam really wants to be on the marketing committee.
I think I'd like to stay be on the budget.
On the budget, yeah, I agree.
I was hoping you would say that, Sam, because I was going to.
That's kind of almost our unspoken rule.
Yeah, the alderman.
Yeah.
budget. Well, let's leave that open. I don't want it to be open too long though, because planning is starting right away.
Yeah.
Do
Do you want to just fill in until the new person?
glad to.
Okay.
And then budgeting, let's put Sam on that. I would like to stay on that one as well.
I'd like to stay on as well.
Okay, then we'll do Sam,
Katie.
me, and Carter.
There you go.
Wow. Went pretty smoothly.
There you go.
Thanks all. Alright. And then the last thing that I thank you for allowing me to add something. I'd like to inform the board of a situation I've been made aware of by the library director and have discussed with the city manager. A staff member filed grievances with the city against Elizabeth after they had received discipline action. The city manager dismissed the grievances and sustained Elizabeth's discipline actions. I believe more grievances have been filed, so another hearing will take place on Monday. Mediation will also take place. Elizabeth has continued to follow all instructions given by the city manager and has his support. She also has my support, and I believe the board as a whole. I'm not privy to personnel information and don't believe it the place of the board to know such matters pertaining to staff, but as we do oversee the director, I think it's prudent that we are made aware of what's currently going on. After my conversation with the city manager, I'm confident that appropriate processes are being followed and the director is being supported. I do understand that this has been a very tense and stressful time for Elizabeth, and hope these matters can be quickly resolved through due process. Well, would you like to say anything?
I will abstain from saying anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
And I think there shouldn't be much discussion about this. I think your statement summed up everything that's going on very, very well. But I don't want to get into too many particulars since this is an open public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Just did not want the board to be surprised by anything since Elizabeth, that does directly involve Elizabeth, who we are tasked with overseeing. So.
Are there, without getting into particulars, I guess, to your point, is there opportunities, I guess, moving forward in the future to be more transparent with us when things like this are taking place, like through executive sessions or?
Typically, these issues are handled by the city administrator by our personnel policy. So although you are an oversight board, all personnel issues do have to go through the city administrator by the City of White Rose Personnel Manual. And we try to keep personnel issues confidential because as confidential as possible, because a lot of times the employees, in majority of cases, the employees end up staying with us. And so we don't want that stigma to follow the employees if they continue their careers with us.
Are disciplinary actions to the city not public record?
They are, but they have to be on, like a form has to be filled out and has to be turned in and go through all that. So that's the reason we don't openly advertise what's going on. But if someone wanted to know the specifics, they could come up and go through the public records process to pull that information.
Okay. I guess my question here is, from an oversight perspective, I guess maybe that's where I'm lost a little bit on then, like, our roles and responsibilities here as the oversight board and the ultimately, primary responsibility for doing her performance review and performance evaluation, the appointment of this position, and the, potential removal, if in case that matters. At what point in time are we involved in the conversation so that we're knowledgeable enough to make the educated, decisions we need as a board?
I think that would be a decision that Jerry would have to make. The city administrator would have to make it. What point has it reached a critical level that he feels like he needs to involve the executive committee?
So there's no policy and procedure in place that would state that we would need to be informed?
No, not that I'm aware of, unless Jerry's aware of something that I'm not. Because I'm more prone to the personnel manual. So,
Jerry, can you
Yeah.
speak to that?
Yeah, basically the library board has the ability to remove and appoint a librarian. So you would be kept up to date on anything that was going on with the librarian as far as disciplinary action being taken against her, which I can confidently say that's not happened in 11 years she's been in office. But and then it stops at that point. The other employees fall underneath the librarian, which falls underneath our personnel policies. We only have a few positions in the city like this. I have the city recorder and finance director also. They're strictly appointed by the board, mayor, alderman, and so they have control over that. But the rest of the employees all fall under the city administrator.
So Jerry, are you saying that the board hasn't been informed yet because Elizabeth hasn't been disciplined?
That's correct. If there was matters where I needed to take action against the librarian, I would definitely meet with the executive board of the library committee or talk to the director himself, depending on what took place and how severe the action, and how quickly I have to take disciplinary action. Let's say if it was, something really serious where Elizabeth got in an incident where she shot and killed somebody. Would I want to keep her on staff right away? I probably would put her in a position where she'd be removed, at least in a situation where we should be on administrative leave without pay until I had discussion with the board.
So let me ask this question, Jerry, and I understand everything you're saying. I guess my question here is around her performance specifically. So if there's something going on within the city that could potentially be impacting her performance, how would we be made light of a scenario like that, like grievances filed against her, or, you know, workplace matters of that could ultimately be impacting us, and then, in fact, our opinion of her and her performance? Not saying that is occurring, but I'm trying to just understand how essentially we would get light of information like that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Andrew. I think, you know, if she was unfit for duty, or her staff was ready to give her a vote of no confidence. I'm used to that when I used to work in the union. Sometimes they would get that serious about their boss and they want a vote of no confidence. If we got to something like that, you all would definitely be made aware of it. This is an incident that we're dealing with is one employee, very minor disciplinary action. We're talking very low level, and I think we'll get through this. We'll get this resolved.
Jerry, could I ask, when was this complaint originally filed?
See, we had to slow it down a little bit because of my medical situation.
It was the middle of May, Jerry.
Middle of May was when we had the first.
That's 2023.
That's 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing about that. And I think that, you know, because of you come to their events and you're around there, and if there was a situation coming up, I think you probably would hear something from different employees. But you know, I've had nothing but praises for Elizabeth and the way she's managed this library for all these years. So I have full confidence that she's going to continue doing that for many more years. And like I said, we'll take care of this minor incident.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. I think you know, I'm going to speak for everybody here, but somebody jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. I think the concern for us, you know, or for me, and I'm rolling off, so, you know, the people coming after me and the people that are still here, right, is like, we want to make sure that this ultimately doesn't become just like a ceremonial position, right? Like that, you know, we are fulfilling the duties and obligations in which we've been appointed, and in turn, doing so for the director that's been appointed. And I think that's just kind of maybe some of the clarification we're looking for is the true roles and responsibilities that this board has, and getting some clarification around when we are engaged and when we are not.
Yeah, it would be primarily with just the librarian itself. That's what it's. I was just looking at the ordinance just to make sure again what it states, and that you have the authority over the librarian, but not the employees.
Right.
They fall under the direction of the librarian. So, you know, 130 something employees, and these actions come up every now and then. And you know, in this particular instance, we're talking about very minor disciplinary action that's been given. So I think it was something that came up really big with one of our employees that probably may have known, but for the most part, I try to keep that, as Amanda said, keep that stuff confidential and quiet for the employee's sake.
I think what Andrew's saying, though, isn't that we need to know about discipline actions and stuff at the library, but grievances being filed against the director.
And I think what Jerry's saying is that if he had found it to be sustained,
Mm-hmm.
then at that point he would come forward and discuss it with you guys.
Gotcha.
But after going through...
That's definitely a good clarification. That's exactly what would happen. If I felt that that the grievance had some merit to it, yeah, I definitely would be getting the board involved.
Excellent.
Parts of that.
Really helpful clarification.
Is that just an unwritten standard, or is there some way that we can put like a reasonable timeline on having some communication if there is some merit to a complaint being filed?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily, it's not written. I mean, we have a personnel policy we follow. So I think, you know, as long as we follow our due process, we should be okay. In your situation, obviously, because of her, it would be different with me with dealing with Elizabeth as far as disciplinary action against her. If she had a minor issue that I had to discipline with, I probably would make anything known to the board regarding the director. So if there was anything, especially if she was having issues, but I haven't had that with her so far. I've had no need to discipline Elizabeth because she's been a very loyal and a very good employee for us. So, I mean, I don't think there's any specific thing. I mean, like I said, it just hasn't happened. So I guess if it did happen, I definitely would want to reach out to the chair of the board and see how they want to to go about handling the situation.
So just to clarify, make sure that I'm understanding everything, this particular incident is an employee filed a grievance, which you've not necessarily found to have credence, and Elizabeth is not being disciplined, so then we don't necessarily need to know.
Right.
But I think what Mr. Armstrong is saying is from the perspective of a performance evaluation, from our perspective looking at Elizabeth, we now do know that a grievance was filed, whether or not it holds water or not. And are you asking, Andrew, if we should be made known what the grievance was at the time of the performance evaluation, or is that a moot point if it's not sustained?
I personally maybe think that it's potentially a moot point, but I think that if you're in a position of distress, right, because you have grievances or you have a workplace matter that could be potentially impacting you, you know, it's like we don't always know what's going on in everybody's individual minds, right? So your performance could begin to suffer, and we could all be sitting here going, what's wrong with Elizabeth, and have no clue that she's got other stuff going on. So while despite the fact that it wasn't upheld, we were sitting here, you know, you could potentially be questioning somebody's individual performance and then ultimately responsible for there without all the information.
Well, and I think if that is the case that comes up, if you suddenly saw a dip in performance on Elizabeth's performance, you should at that point feel like comfortable reaching out to Jerry and saying, hey, I want to know if there's anything else going on, just to see if there's something that he may be aware of that you guys aren't, that's not necessarily something that he can come right out in an open meeting and say.
Jerry, would you advise the board come to you with quarterly updates to see if there is anything?
Well, that's up to the board if that's what you want to do. I mean, like I said, we've not had an issue so far. You know,
let me ask this question.
I want to clear this up. Let me explain how the grievance is. It's a little bit. Basically, we have a due process where if an employee receives discipline, they can appeal it to me and grievance. If they don't like what the discipline is given them, they can appeal it to the city manager, and then I make a determination, and then at that point, if they want to file anything further, they would have to take actions with the EEOC or with the court or something like that. But I would think, you know, obviously if I had a grievance against, if I seen other grievances, this is a one employee thing. I mean, if I started getting multiple grievances from the employees, I probably would definitely want to have some discussion with you all. Right. Like I said, we just haven't gotten to that point yet.
No, absolutely.
And her position is unique in the sense, like I said, I only have 3 department heads that have this specific situation where they're accountable and answerable to a board that could replace them, to terminate their positions. Yeah, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here. And
absolutely not.
I think I want to make sure that, you know, Elizabeth is confident or feels confident that she has my support. She has your support. I know she has the mayor's support. He's been on that board for 6 years. Him and I have had this discussion about the situation. So we're gonna make sure she feels safe and secure, and that her job's not in a position where she's about ready to lose her job or anything like that. But that's not the case.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think anybody on this board feels that way by any stretch of the imagination, and I want to make sure that's clear for the record. I think we're just trying to get some understanding. Obviously, to your point, this appears to be a very isolated situation that's just brought brevity to some uncertainty that we, you know, need some clarification on. I have an additional question, though, on that. Is she not allowed to discuss the issue with the chair or the executive, or is she bound? Like, how does that work? Like
I do with my board, you know, we give them as much information as we can, but when it comes to personnel, I usually only discuss it with the mayor, you know, unless it was going to be something that was going to be major. But I have brought in the full board on a few situations, but it's been very, very minimal. I mean, for the most part, we have good employees, and we don't get that many ones, but, you know, 130 employees, we're probably, I don't know, Amanda, what do you think we process 5, 6, 7 disciplinary actions a year, maybe?
If you include counseling in that, we probably process 10 to 15 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
As Jerry said, it's very, very minimal. To answer your question, no, there's no binding of confidentiality. We recommend that department heads and supervisors, regardless of the department, don't discuss disciplinary actions with people outside of being immediately affected by it. Again, because in 98% of the cases, those employees continue their careers with us. And a lot of times, once those perceptions, they can have a lapse in judgment and make a mistake, and once those perceptions are changed, you can't ever change them back. So that's one of the reasons why we caution against discussing specifics of disciplinary actions with anyone outside of the immediate need to know level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's the liability side of things too. When some of these cases can get into legal action, and so we try to be as careful speaking about these disciplinary actions for that reason too.
Because retaliation claims are very, that's actually the majority of the EEOC claims are retaliation claims. And that retaliation can include what falls underneath discussing what they consider to be private matters with individuals who don't need to know, to try to ruin their reputation, for lack of a better term.
So let me ask this question then, thinking about just, any long-term guys, right? I do this all day. So does she have an outlet of somebody that since she can't seem to discuss it with the board for matters, does she have somebody that she's able to discuss this with on, semi-personal / professional, like this is stressing me out type situation, and there's assistance there provided to her to?
Certainly, Andrew. I mean, we have HR. Amanda's sitting there. That's another reason I wanted her to be there tonight, and myself, and the chair of your committee. I mean, I think between the three of us, we should be able to help her through this if she's having an issue with it.
So are we able to talk to her? Okay, so let me back that up then. So are we able to talk about I guess was the opportunity to be able to discuss it, but maybe not discuss the specifics of it?
If we don't need names.
Like, I don't need names, and I don't maybe need the specifics, but it's like, hey, I'm stressed out at work, and this is what's kind of going on right now. I can't give you any of the logistics and the specifics of who's involved, but I want to be transparent.
The chair can do that, and that's why I brought this thing. I wanted to inform the board because I thought I was a board member, that I would want to be made aware of mainly, and to be clear, Elizabeth knew I was saying something tonight, and Jerry knew exactly what I was saying tonight. Because I know that this has been a stressful time for Elizabeth, so as a way to show support for her, was to make you all aware so you could continue to support the director. That was my intent, is not to get the board involved in library staff matters. My intent is to bring light to a way that we could be supporting the director.
100%. Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all good questions. I appreciate that. And, we're going to do the best we can to support Elizabeth and take care of this minor situation we're having with one of our employees.
Thanks, Jerry, for joining us on Zoom and being willing to answer some questions tonight.
Okay.
With that, there isn't any other discussion or comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned.
I do have a question, but not unrelated to anything. Unrelated to anything. It's gossip. The question is gossip.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank
It's a gossip question.
Thank you.
Is the library, the storyboard thing on the trail, is that being reworked? Okay. It's all over Hip White House. It's being reworked.
He purchased the materials, I think Elizabeth said, at the end of last budget year.
Okay.
So it's just one of those, we've had flooding issues in City Hall.
No, it's perfectly fine. I'm only curious because there was like all of it was like gossip on Hip White House or whatever version of Hip White House that was talking